Let's talk about a couple of the issues that I have been seeing in this week's assignments. So I want to direct you to the directions from this week for your body paragraph, specifically the part about your evidence. So in point 3 there, I said this must be in your own words unless it's a direct quote, and I want to explain what I mean by a direct quote. I think that needs some clarification. So there's two little bullets there. Number 1 says, if a specific person said it, you may use a direct quote. So, for example, if there's an article on Rosa Parks and they are interviewing someone who was there for the event and that interview is put in your source, you can use that person's words as a direct quote. You would put quotation marks around their words and you'd cite them. The other time you would use a direct quote would be if you, for some reason, just can't change the words around, if it's said one way and that's the only way that really makes sense. So maybe like data or statistics, facts like that. Otherwise, you need to put your source's information in your own words and don't just copy and paste what your source says and put quotation marks around it. That's plagiarism and that's wrong. So you should only have like one direct quote in your writing. Good writing isn't riddled with direct quotes. It's in your own words. This is your research paper, so what did you get out of it? So I want to talk to you, show you a couple examples of what I mean. Okay, so here's one. I highlighted the evidence here in green because you need to highlight the different parts of your sentence or your paragraph. And the first piece of evidence here says, in April of 1972, he was awarded the Nobel Prize 4 years after he was assassinated on April 1968 for his nonviolent campaign on racism. So here's an example of something that needs to be put in your own words. This is not a direct quote. This is not something that a person said in the article. This is just a statement from the article. So this needs to be put in the writer's own words. It should not have quotation marks around it. It's not considered a direct quote. This is just considered plagiarism. However, the second piece here says, it was open to the public in 2011 and was designed to be a lasting tribute to Martin Luther's legacy and will forever serve as a monument to the freedom, opportunity, and justice for which he stood. So I could argue that this could be a direct quote because this is exactly what somebody would have said for its purpose. This is what it was designed to be, this quote thing. So that would be okay as a direct quote. However, I know this quote is not correct and you didn't copy it correctly because this paper is not about Martin Luther. This paper is about Martin Luther King Jr. That's another problem that I'm seeing in a lot of the papers that are getting turned in so far. Martin Luther was a guy who created the Lutheran religion. He has nothing to do with the civil rights movement. So do not write the name Martin Luther in your paper because you mean Martin Luther King Jr. Moving on. The third piece of evidence here, the purpose of this speech was to use universal themes to depict the struggles of African Americans before closing with an improvised riff on his dream of equality. So this one could be argued that it could be a direct quote, but it could also be put in your own words. Since I've already used a direct quote in this paragraph, I shouldn't use another one. Direct quotes should be used sparingly. There should be no more than one direct quote per paragraph.